Hey, it's your boy, Eric Dwinells here. Now, usually when I interrupt an episode, it means that there's some kind of issue with the episode, and that's true of this one, too. That's why I'm cutting in early. Now, this time it's not a technical issue like we usually have, where I might say, oh, there's a little glitch here, you're going to hear a little noise here. It's not that. This episode, the issue was, when we first recorded it, I was very, very tired and a little bit grumpy when I recorded the episode you're about to listen to with Brian Toney. And the idea of the episode is that it was supposed to be kind of like a rundown on Salem and what kind of people are in and attracted to Salem and kind of what goes on around Halloween and things you can do in the city and everything. But the problem is, I think I was a little bit negative, more negative than I meant to be. I do have some negative things to say about Salem, but in general, I love Salem. And so I wanted to kind of go through and present this show still to you, but also come at it again. So I'm kind of re-recording this episode with commentary. So this was recorded on Sunday night with Brian Toney, and I'm going to chime in here and there just to kind of tighten the show up. It was also a little bit aimless, too. We kind of just came at it with no notes. We were hoping it would be like the Ghost episode that a lot of you really enjoyed when we just went off the top of our heads. So that's what I'm going to be doing here. The reason I was so tired was because I had been in Salem all weekend. It was my first weekend of witch finding for the season. I always go out the last weekend in September, and normally I don't stay too long because it's kind of a slow weekend. There's not too many people out. I'm usually one of maybe 2 or 3 street performers that are out. And, you know, it's not a big money day or anything like that. It's just to get the rust off, make sure I remember all the things I wanted to say and can do my presentation as well as ever. And this weekend was different, though. It was very busy in Salem. It was unusually busy for the last weekend in September. Had a great weekend, had a really good time. I'm going to discuss it on the show, so I won't go into details here. But yeah, it was a really nice weekend, and what that means is that I stayed out longer than I normally do, and since I hadn't really built up my tolerance like normal, believe it or not, it is rather hard to stand on a box for between 4 and 6 hours a day and perform. But that's exactly what I did all weekend, so that's why I came home. Brian said he was able to record an episode on Sunday night. It was his idea to come over and do that. And I was really grateful that he wanted to. And it's been a long time since I've had someone in my apartment to do an episode. Basically, I think we can boil it down to perhaps I'm not clinically diagnosed, but maybe some kind of depression. And my apartment was real messy basically for the entire summer. And I just couldn't have company over, and it's still not in amazing shape. It never is. I'm a little bit of a hoarder, as I've said on other shows. I'm like a baby hoarder. It's just starting, and I'm trying to keep it. I'm trying to keep tabs on it so I don't become like a real problem hoarder. Right now, it's just like, oh, he's got a lot of stuff. But yeah. So anyway, the apartment's still not in amazing shape, but it's good enough that it's one of those situations like your good friends can come over, but you wouldn't have new people over. So luckily, Brian Toney counts as a good friend, and he better than anybody knows that I have a lot of stuff because he's helped me move several times. So, without any... Well, actually, there will be further to do, but we'll get into the actual episode part right now. I don't know why. I don't know what just happened.
It's not important.
I was about to start the show, and then I just giggled.
I think it might have been the hand. I don't know.
But I do a lot of hand gestures if there's no one here.
Okay.
I don't know why, but I feel more comfortable and more natural when I do that.
You're
even though it's
Italian.
Super not natural.
That was pretty natural.
All right, let's try this.
All right.
For real this time. Welcome to Spooky Ass Shit. I am your host, Eric Dwinells, and tonight, for the first time in a long time, returning guest host, Brian Toney.
How's it going, Eric?
It's going pretty good.
That's good.
Now, Brian, I have to be honest with you. This is the first time I've had someone in the apartment to do an episode in quite a long time.
Yeah.
I had a couple bank episodes that I did, and then some were like phone interviews, and I went to Count Orlok's Nightmare Gallery and interviewed the owner there.
That's right.
But I haven't had anyone in here for a while, so it's nice to have someone back. And I'm lucky that it's you, a good, close personal friend and an old friend, and it doesn't really matter what shape my apartment's in. So
Yeah,
you can see all the bullshit. That's
hey, man,
fine.
I don't see clutter.
Yeah, well, you moved most of it in here, so.
That's fair.
And you're well aware how much clutter there is.
There used to be more. I'll say that.
I'm trying to get rid of more stuff. This episode is a little bit different than normal. We aren't talking about any one specific thing aside from we are going to be discussing the city of Salem, Massachusetts.
Specific place.
Yeah. But we're going to be talking about different things about Salem, and the reason we're doing this, of course, is because right now as we record this, it's the last weekend in September, but as it will be heard, it will be October. So finally we are in the October season. Of course, Salem is pretty much Halloween Town, USA.
It is. It is ramping up as we speak.
Yep, and I'm gonna defend that remark in a little bit because I know there's some people who will claim that they have other places that are Halloweenish. And, you know, you've kind of heard my thoughts before if you're a long-time listener on the show, but we'll go through them again. We're going to talk about a few things that maybe we've talked about before, but just like my personal paranormal stories episode a few episodes back, consider this like the definitive official telling them.
Nah, that's a lot of pressure. I don't know. The cadence will be different. If we repeat anything, the words won't be in the exact same order, so take solace in that.
And if you're a fan of our... Brian and I did an episode about ghosts, maybe last year, I think.
That sounds right.
And
I think that might have been what made you giggle.
Maybe, yeah. But the point was... Oh, is that my phone? How professional.
I believe so.
I only had the ringer on. I usually have them off, but I only had it on because I didn't want to miss if you called. Got an email from a fan.
Oh, really?
That's what that beep was.
Uh-huh.
We're
They're
gonna
like,
talk
you
about
better do a Salem episode or I'll scream.
Well, she's gonna be happy that we did it.
She is going to be happy.
No, but this is like our ghost episode. In that episode, you came over and I didn't have any notes prepared, but I was like, you know what? I'm cool. Brian's cool. We'll figure this out. We're just gonna do ghosts, and you know, what the fuck are they?
Yep.
And that's what we did. So this is basically our Salem. What the fuck is it? Episode.
It's a town. Well, good episode. Actually,
But,
is it Salem Town or is
no,
it
it's a
Salem
city.
Village?
It's a city.
But between it and Danvers is like Salem Town.
It would be Salem Town.
Sweet, I was right.
Yeah. Salem Village is now Danvers.
Yeah, they wanted nothing to do with that name. Apparently. Maybe there's some better reason they changed it. Who knows?
Yeah, well, a lot of the accused lived in Danvers, but the actual trials and all that stuff, it really did take place in Salem. That's a common misconception, one that I even believed for a number of years before I became the professional that I am today.
The Salem expert.
Yeah. All right, so before we really dive in, of course, let me remind everyone to visit the website spookyas.com or spookyasshit.com. They both take you to the same place, and that is the show's blog page. From there, you can listen to each and every episode, even the ones no longer available on iTunes. You can also sometimes find outtakes and pictures and YouTube videos that are associated with the episode. And you can also find links to all of our social media. We are at Spooky Ass Shit on both Twitter and Instagram. And you can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/spookyas. And Brian, do you know about the new closed group on Facebook?
I do not, and I wish you'd tell me.
Well, I will. It is called The Spookaroos. And you can find it by searching that title. But this came at the suggestion of an actual spookaroo, a listener.
Okay.
And she said, you know, hey, I don't really need my family commenting on my comments about, like, you know, Bigfoot and serial killers and stuff. And
It's fair.
And, you know, and then I was thinking some of our listeners are professional people. And, you know, it matters what is out there about them in public. Now, me, I'm just a simple song and dance man. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
People can, I'm pretty, like, whatever. It's, you know. But other people, you know, it actually matters. And they have people that, yes.
No, I was going to say that if I had one word to describe you, it'd be, yeah, pretty whatever.
Yeah, so anyway, Yeah, it does matter for some people. So it's nice to have like a private place where we can just kind of talk amongst ourselves. And that's what the Spookaroos is. So if you go on Facebook and you search Spookaroos, you're going to see two things. One of them is going to be like a spooky looking thing. That's us. The other one is like a weird children's clothing line. That's not us.
All right.
And the children's clothing line thing hasn't been updated in quite some time. So
okay.
I don't know why they were Spookaroo anyway, but anyway.
They don't look spooky at all?
No, they're just regular, like, Oshkosh, Bagosh ripoff kind of things.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. All right, Brian, so let's talk about Salem. Now, why I thought you in particular might be good to bring on for this is because you called me in July as a secret birthday outing for yourself.
Is that true?
It was your birthday.
Oh, okay, I believe you.
I don't know if you necessarily did it purposely to be like,
I absolutely did not.
I'm tricking Eric into taking me out for my birthday. But I would have been happy to.
Let's go to Salem.
That was the case. But you did call and say, hey, do you want to go to Salem? And I was like, well, yeah, sure. That's fine with me. But I was a little curious as to why you thought to go to Salem. And then, well, I'll let you explain. But you had reasons. And I thought that was a very interesting thing. So,
do you remember them? Because I'm not sure exactly what my reasons were at the time.
you said you were kind of strangely drawn to Salem, and that
it's true.
Like even like something like Boston maybe or something like that. Like you wouldn't necessarily want to go around and look at the goofy tourist shops and the tourist traps and the museums and whatnot. But for some reason, for Salem, you kind of did.
Yeah, that sounds right. I mean, growing up around like the North Shore of Boston, you're always very well aware of Salem. And so part of it was, who are the people who are just kind of aware of Salem, who are not even from Massachusetts, who are coming in and they've heard about the witch trials and everything, but what do they expect to find? Do they expect to find this strange sort of touristic circus? But that leads into the next part, which is kind of, it interests me a lot. Like, a resort town does not interest me because it's straight up tourism. But a tourist town where a lot of people sort of make their livings on something that they're very enthusiastic about, whether it be, witchcraft or the dark arts or just performing in general, that's kind of unique, and it sounds a little like Disney World, I guess, but it's obviously a lot different. So that was part of it.
I would say, especially around this time of year, October, that Salem kind of feels like a darker Disney World.
Okay.
Like, it kind of has that atmosphere, and you know that there's things to do, and you know that you're paying too much to do most of them, but there's still just this atmosphere that you can't get anywhere else. It's not, it's not the happiest place on earth or the most magical place on earth.
The scariest.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far.
No,
But
probably not.
But actually, let me talk about that while we're at it.
Fake scary, yeah.
Well, Halloween-y.
Fun scary, yeah.
Yeah. I mentioned at the top of the show that there are other places that claim to be the Halloween capital of the world and that kind of thing for different reasons.
Drag America.
Well, one place that I've been to, and I've gone several times, and I enjoy it very much, is Sleepy Hollow, New York.
Okay. I've never been. I know someone from there, though.
Yeah. And it's a very nice little town. It's very cool to visit, and you can see all the... Of course, the legend of Sleepy Hollow is not a true story. It was...
Wait. A guy didn't ride around on a horse with a pumpkin for a head?
No.
Come on, Eric.
Most likely not. But all the places mentioned in it are real, and you can visit them.
We have the bridge and everything?
Yeah, well, the bridge, they have a reconstruction of the bridge because the original bridge is gone, but that was
okay.
real. Now it's a very busy road. But further on down back, right next to the cemetery, the old Dutch burial ground, there is a reconstruction bridge.
Well, that's kind of neat.
Yeah. And, again, lovely, fun to visit, but went on a tour, and the tour guide was like, oh, yeah, Salem, Massachusetts. Now, I didn't mention anything. He was just saying this to the group.
That's his
He's
go-to.
He's like, Salem, Massachusetts, they like to think
Shit-talking.
that they've got Halloween covered and that they're the best in the world. He's like, not true. You come here, we'll show you what's up in October. And I was like, oh, that's really cute. In my head. I didn't say this out loud. Not to them. I did say it to.
You were looking at cat pictures on your phone.
I did say it to the person I was with. I was like, oh, that's really cute.
Man.
You do a couple weekends worth of Halloween stuff and you think that's great? Yeah. Because the thing about Salem is, of course people know it for Halloween, and you come at Halloween and, like I said, you get that festive atmosphere. Even this weekend, the last weekend in September, it was pretty busy. And there were people in costume and everything, you know. But the thing is, aside from maybe all the people in costume and some of the street performers aren't out, you know, year round or anything, but all of the museums and all of the touristy stores and all that stuff, it's open pretty much year round.
Yeah, when did we go? It was like summertime.
We went in July, whenever your
Yeah.
birthday is. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head, but end of July.
Yeah, I was surprised, like, by how many people were actually out and doing things and street performing, and yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, it was a nice day that I remember, so I think that
It was.
probably helps a lot. But I mean, Salem is just a nice town in general, I think. Anyway, I think it's a nice place to visit. You can go down along the waterfront if you want. You can go look at the witch stuff, of course. They also have the Peabody Essex Museum,
Dynamite spot.
which is a world-class museum. It's, you know, it's a nice place to visit, and so there's lots of other, you know, non-witchy Halloween-y things to do in Salem, but of course that's what most people come to Salem for, and the town does not let you forget it, no matter what time of year it is.
That's true. Did they ever change their mascot? I'm assuming they didn't. But like, I feel like there were a lot of people who were kind of like, really, the Salem witches are gonna do that? People from both sides of that sort of discussion.
I don't know. I would be surprised if they did, because
Yeah, I get it.
the
but
police badges still have a witch riding over the moon on them,
good lord. All right.
and they just changed the name of the mall to the Witch City Mall
Don't care for
last year.
it. Yeah. Oh, that's what it is. My mom used to teach middle school there. That's what it was. So she was deeply embroiled in that. I wouldn't call it a scandal, but that was probably the mid-'90s. There was like a referendum to change the mascot. Didn't happen, but
Well, but that is the eternal struggle that I think Salem finds itself sort of facing, but on the other hand, they don't really want to push it because it is the town's bread and butter. Because, you know, how much are we exploiting a national tragedy, which is the Salem witch trials,
yeah.
and how much money can we make off of it? Basically, those are the two sides of the coin. Now, when I'm in character as the Witchfinder General, every weekend in October,
Mhm.
and actually the last weekend in September,
Registered copyright.
yeah, generally 11 to 6 or so. But anyway, when I'm out there, I make jokes, and some of them are slightly off color, or perhaps in bad taste.
A lot of fart jokes.
No, but I mean, they
No.
might, you know, I'll reference the witch trial or something, and as I point out to the crowd, I'll say, look, you can be upset with me for jokes, off-color jokes, but you are touring a national tragedy.
Yep.
So I don't know what higher moral ground you're trying to claim.
Well, they can leave, I suppose. they can just be terrible for one day and then leave. No, I don't claim to have any of the answers for that, and it's not really my place to. But it is intriguing.
I do think they need a better memorial, though. They do have a witch trial victims memorial,
Yeah.
but it was just from the 90s, and it's already looking kind of beat up and worn looking. It's everybody's names on these stones that you can walk around. They look like benches, but I don't think you're supposed to sit on them, and I haven't seen people sitting on them.
I'm sure it's happened quite
Yeah.
a bit. So if you didn't want it to happen, it's definitely happened.
Well, they're right at bench level, so you're kind of seems like you're inviting
don't
people
know.
to do it, but I don't know.
Maybe they lean into that, like the idea that it does look old, and it's kind of a different layer of creepy. Like, this is ostensibly a memorial, but we're making it in our own aesthetic, which
Yeah.
is a fake aesthetic. Yeah, there's a lot of layers here.
Yeah, there's, the truth is when people come and because they come up to me because, you know, they see me in costume and they're like, oh, this guy knows stuff.
It'd be funny if there were just so many actors on the streets of Salem that like they would take one look at you and be like, no, that's about normal. Let's go find someone who looks even weirder.
Yeah, well, so they come up to me and they'll say, what can we do in Salem? Or a lot of times what I'll get is we went to blank witch museum, any museum with witch in the title,
Yeah.
and we were really disappointed that it didn't really go into the witch trials. It gave you a very like base understanding. It talked about it for like 5 minutes, and then it was like about modern witchcraft or whatever the situation is. But they didn't find the history that they were looking for. So they'll come to me and they'll say, where can we find like real history here?
Yeah.
And the answer, unfortunately, is
there's not a lot of it.
no. There's very little. Future Eric interrupting. Now, when I talk about the witch museums, as I've done many times, both as the Witchfinder General in real life and on this podcast, I've been a little bit negative about them. And the truth is, they deserve it to a point because they don't offer a ton and they kind of all offer the same thing. But the other truth of the matter is most of them aren't really a ripoff because they don't charge you a ton of money to go in. And the only thing I'd say about them, if you're coming to Salem, is pick one, either one that you can reserve in advance or one that has the shortest line, and go to that one. Because if you've seen one, you've kind of seen them all. They do tell the story in slightly different ways. Some are slightly better than others, but it's not that big a difference. So if you're going to any of the witch museums, that's the Witch Museum, the Witch Dungeon, the Witch Village, the Witch History Museum, the Wax Museum. There's differences. There's definitely differences between the museums, but if you're going to try to go to all of them on one trip and you're thinking you're going to see different and exciting things and you're going to learn different things, that's not really going to be the case and you're going to leave disappointed. But if you're someone who enjoys, how can I put this without sounding more insulting than I mean to? There is a special charm to these places. And the mannequins that they use, how outdated some things are, how the sets are set up, how unwoke some of their portrayals of Tituba, the Barbados slave, is. So even in their inadequacies, there is a charm to those as well. And if you're the right kind of person, you can really enjoy those. But if you're someone who is just looking for a pure historical experience, then I think you're going to be disappointed by any or all of the museums with witch in the title. That's why, as I'm about to say on this episode, really, if you want history, unfortunately or fortunately, depending how you look at it, the best thing you can do is come and talk to the Witchfinder General. And he doesn't charge. Back to the show. Basically, if you come and talk to me, that's probably the best you're going to do. If you come and talk to me as the Witchfinder General, even though I try to, make it a little bit light and, but I know a lot of information. I can answer most questions about the witch trials that people would have. And then the other place you can go to is the old burial ground where one of the judges is buried.
Sure.
You can try one of the tours, but like anything else in Salem, after some time it gets a little bit more commercial, and then you get to hear what I usually refer to as museum stories where, a little snippet may be true, but then to make it more exciting for people, they've added some elements and some outright fabrications. I can't tell you how many different tours I've seen stop in the same place and give a very different offer, a very different description of why the place is important or haunted or whatever the case may be.
Like, can you do that? I'm just curious as to how that's justified. You say museum, like, is there any actual quality control on museums, period? I've never really thought about that. I feel like ancient Anasazi arrowhead that was made last weekend. Like, who is checking on these things? Or is it just assumed that someone who cares enough to rent a building space and put a bunch of artifacts in it and write some placards is going to be the foremost authority on it. We're just supposed to believe it or just be like, yeah, that might be true?
Well, I don't know about the whole world, but in Salem, it would seem that it does not take a lot to qualify as a museum.
Well, and there is the one that I think most people who grew up around here went to on their Salem field trip when they were in elementary school. There's one that, I don't know if it's still there, but the one that has like the...
Oh, it's still there.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're animatronics because they're not advanced at all. But
No,
they
they're
have
broken mannequins.
broken mannequins, that works. Yeah, or where each thing lights up and then it plays a poorly choreographed scene. Yeah, that made an impression on me when I was that age.
Yeah, and they don't move, by the way. You're remembering wrong. You're remembering it better than it was.
Damn Mandela effect.
Yeah, they don't move. I believe you're talking about the Witch Museum.
I mean, probably.
Not to be confused with the Salem Witch Village, the Salem Witch Wax Museum, the Salem Witch History Museum, or the Witch's Dungeon. Those are all
Witch's Dungeon. Sounds like
museums.
It does not belong.
Yeah, well, the Witch's Dungeon actually it's supposed to represent, the jail they were put in. So it does give you a feel for that. You go down, and they actually have the only piece of history there. They have an actual beam from the old jailhouse. That's the only little bit of...
I thought you were going to say they have the only piece of actual witch. I was like, that's gross.
No. So the other historical place to mention is the place that we went to, actually, on your birthday.
The judge's house, right?
Yeah, well, it's called the Witch House.
Of course it is.
But it didn't belong to a witch. It belonged to a witch trial judge, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
Judge Corwin, I believe, although I could have that
sounds
wrong.
right.
But we went in. You entered through the gift shop, of course.
Always.
And I remember going up and asking if it was a guided tour or not. And then the guy was like, it's self-guided. It's like, so it's not guided.
No, just listen to your heart. And listen to your heart and experience the 5.5 rooms.
Yeah, so this is another one. You're gonna walk in, you're gonna walk through the place, you're gonna look at some cards taped to the wall, and self-guided tour, right? But at least it was actually around at the time.
Yeah, I was a child who, I didn't travel when I was younger. I was traveled. Like me and my sister, our parents would take us everywhere, and I have been to all of the museums, like all of them, all over the country and in Canada and other countries. And I never really enjoyed the museum aspect. I didn't like reading the cards. I didn't like staring at the stone arrowheads. It didn't do much for me. But that was kind of cool, like going back to this house and actually reading them and enjoying reading them. I guess that's what comes with a certain level of maturity. Who knows? That was kind of cool. I liked it.
Yeah, and it was set up pretty well, and it was, I think, only $8 or something like that. It wasn't terribly expensive. So, it was enjoyable. So if you're looking for a little bit of history, that's a good place to go. But the fact that it wasn't a guided tour. Now, maybe they do things differently in October, because we went in the off season, definitely. So maybe in October they do offer more guided tours or something like that. I don't know for sure.
It's true, but didn't they have at least one or maybe even two people just hanging out in the rooms that could answer questions? Or were those people who were from other attractions who just happened to be there? I can't even remember.
No, I think that they do have people that work there. However, I don't know how much they are officially supposed to be able to answer your questions. It could just be that they are there to watch the room and make sure
nobody steals anything. That's fair.
In case you wanted an old-timey bonnet or something, they're gonna make sure
you know I do.
But the woman we ran into, because you stopped to ask her some questions.
I believe she was a seasonal, like she had... No, I'm wrong. But she had moved there from somewhere else where she had also done historical reenactment and museum curation, stuff like that.
Yeah, so she was like a history buff anyway.
Yeah.
And she just likes to do this kind of thing.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people like that in Salem who this is specifically their shit, is the kind of historical or like vaguely historical without being too technical or rigid or boring, and also with maybe some element of performance involved.
Yeah, I mean, another thing that I've never done actually in Salem, I've heard good things about it though. I don't see too many people coming out and complaining about it. Is Cry Innocent, which is a live thing that they do. I don't even know exactly how to describe it. I know that they have an actress portraying Bridget Bishop,
Okay.
who was the first person to be murdered during the course of the witch trials in 1692. And they have, it's always like really young cast members. I'm sure they're all from Salem State or something.
The drama department.
Yeah, and they come out and they walk the streets and, oh, good day, young lady. Good day, good sir. And they do that kind of thing as they go around.
I hope they sound exactly like that.
They kind of do.
Good day.
And, now they're out there playing ukulele, too.
I don't like that.
And one of them was out playing ukulele and singing Scarborough Fair.
I guess you could do worse for a historical
Yeah, but
song.
It's not medieval times.
No.
But anyway.
Most people don't know that, though, I think is the...
Yeah,
hitch
so
there.
their pre-show maybe could use a little bit of work, but I've heard that their actual performance is not so bad, and they take poor Bridget, of course, and they bring her to the old town hall and they try her there, somewhere along those lines. I should probably go sometime, but I've heard it's like $20 or something like that. I don't know, but so anyway, that's something else to look into if you're interested in actual history. But I really do wish that there was like a historical witchcraft museum in Salem, but there just isn't one. The Witch House is the closest you get. And the Peabody Essex Museum, which I don't know why I'm having so much trouble saying tonight.
That's not easy.
They actually have some witch trial documentation, like authentic from back in the day, but it's not on display, which is crazy.
Maybe it's like super fragile, wouldn't survive even in a case. I don't know.
Maybe. It just seems like they should at least put it out for October or something.
One day only. Mona Lisa, that shit.
Yeah.
Lines around the block. Yeah. Talk to him.
Yeah.
Get your cut.
See what I can do.
Museums have a ton of money, from what I hear.
I'll walk in there and I'll be like, look, you know me. I stand outside your museum all the time and yell at strangers.
Yeah, we've been meaning to talk to you about that, actually.
So let's talk about, like I said, Salem at Halloween time, meaning right now, is very much a festive carnival atmosphere. People come dressed in costume, and they are roaming the streets looking for Halloween goodness, and you'll find plenty of it. And of course, every year I see multitudes of Sanderson sisters from the Hocus Pocus movie.
Oh, okay, yeah, you had to tell me that.
Yeah, and
It was I think I've told Eric this dirty secret that I have not seen that movie.
well, listen, if you've got the night, once we're done recording here.
Every person I tell that I have not seen that are simply aghast.
Yeah. It's pretty good, for what it is. It's not crazy insane comedy or anything like that, but it's
This
an
is like
enjoyable
an early
family
90s vehicle, mid-90s?
movie.
Something
Yeah,
like that?
93.
Okay.
But anyway, yes, people will be dressed up as Sanderson sisters or whatever. There was a little purple girl that kids kept dressing up as last year, and I had no idea who it was.
Little purple girl.
And I still don't know who she is, but I was informed she was from Disney's The Descendants. So that whatever that character is that wears all purple, she was very popular as a costume in Salem last year.
The Disney Channel?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They had like a TV movie or a couple of them about like descendants of the bad guys from the old Disney villains.
All right. I'll take
Yeah.
your word for it.
So one of them wore all purple, and she was very popular. Future Eric chiming in again. This is where the podcast kind of takes a turn that I didn't mean for it to take. I don't mind that it took this turn necessarily, but it's not the direction that I thought the show would go in. We're going to end up talking about street performing quite a bit. So if you don't really care to hear about the street performers of Salem, and especially my street performing in Salem, just skip ahead a little bit, but hopefully you'll find it interesting. But before we move on, because after we get to that, we're going to kind of wrap up the show. I realized, like I said, maybe negative wasn't the right word. I'm not super negative about the place, but I didn't really tell you some of the things that I really like about Salem or some of the other things that it has to offer. We didn't even really touch on the psychics and the palm readers and all that stuff. Mostly because, of course, by now, if you listen to the show, you know I don't believe in those things. And I think if you're going for any reason other than purely for entertainment, you are wasting your money and helping to perpetuate a myth that I think is harmful overall. And I don't mean that in any kind of spiritual sense. I mean that in a literal sense. I think that if these people really think they have powers or would like you to think that they have powers, this is a very bad thing. And but if you're doing it just for fun and just for a little bit of like reading a horoscope or something like that, then I don't have any problem with it. And you can certainly do that in Salem. Just about every store, there's lots of witchcraft stores, will offer that service. They'll have people there. They usually charge quite a bit of money for it. So they're doing pretty all right for themselves. That's another thing we don't really talk about on the episode too much. There are touristy gift shops, of course. My favorite one being the Trolley Depot store. You can check that out. It's right on Essex Street, right behind Steve the Blue Vampire, as a matter of fact, who you're going to hear quite a bit about. And he always stands out right in front of that store. It's a nice store, and there are other souvenir shops that are good too. And as for the witch stores themselves, these are places that sell things that you would use in your Wiccan practice. And there's Hex, which is a popular newer one. And then there's also, I believe it's called Crowhaven Corner. I could have that name wrong, but that is more kind of an old school place. So there's kind of a battle going on between the new school and the old school. I would say Hex is maybe a little bit more commercial. They might disagree rather, with that interpretation, but based on what I've seen. And there's also stores that just sell herbs, and they're very specialized, and you can find anything you could want there. So there's, and a bunch of new age stores in general, bookshops, those kinds of things. All of that stuff is there for the taking. So if you're into these kinds of things, Salem is the place to be. If you're looking for me to give you specific recommendations, that's really kind of a hard thing to do since I don't know exactly what you're looking for. I've already said on the episode, if you're looking for real bare bones history to really get down to the nitty gritty, there's not a lot. Try one of the witch museums. They'll give you kind of an overview of the witch trials, of course, but none of them are going to be able to go into a ton of detail about any certain things. And you can go to Gallows Hill or Proctor's Ledge. Proctor's Ledge is the site where they believe that the gallows were, but there's really not much to see. It's a very, very small park, and it's nice enough to visit, but there's no historical markers or anything really. They're not sure that that's where the gallows were. That's just everybody's best guess. It is kind of fun to go across the street, though, and go to the playground, which is on the park known as Gallows Hill Park. And just know that there's, that's an actual playground that children grow up playing on, Gallows Hill Playground. And what else can you see? You can see the old burial ground I mentioned. The witch dungeon has the beam from the old jailhouse, so that's kind of cool. And you can touch it. It's not even behind like glass or anything. You can, so you can touch a little piece of history there. And of course, non-witchy things. There's the Peabody Essex Museum. Going back to witchy things, I have not done it. It's relatively new, although it's been a few years now. But there is the Gallows Hill Theater. I have heard good things about that. Every time I pass by, the owner of the place comments on how much he likes my Witchfinder costume. So, that's nice enough at least. And but I've heard good things about them, just like I've heard relatively good things about Cry Innocent, so you might want to try both of those things. So if I were going as a tourist, the things that I would want to do personally, I would want to see the Victims Monument and the old burial ground. Those two things are right next to each other. I would check out the Witch House. It's the only surviving structure from the time. And like I said, go to any one of the witch museums. I would check out maybe the PBD Essex Museum just for a little break from all the spooky stuff. And I would go to Count Orlok's Nightmare Gallery, of course, to see some monsters. And then I would top the day off by doing some shopping in the touristy shops and the New Age bookstores and that kind of thing. And then I would go to dinner. There's actually several very good restaurants in Salem. Let's see. I have not been to Rockefeller's, which is a very popular place, but I'm sure it's popular for a reason. There's a new hotel that just opened right on Essex Street that has a restaurant and one on their rooftop even. That could be kind of fun. Haven't had the chance to try that yet. Over on Derby Street, there's a place called Brothers, which is very good food. I've recommended before the Witch's Brew Cafe, which is down on the waterfront. Also the House of Seven Gables is in Salem. I always forget about that for other non-witchy things. The actual House of Seven Gables from the book and everything. So you can visit that too. Of course, there's shooting locations from Hocus Pocus. So if you're into that movie, there's certain things you can check out. You can look online and there's lists of the shooting locations. And other than that, let's get back to the show and talking about street performing. But yeah, so there's lots of street performers out there. I know most of them.
Do you have beef with any of them?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
I do.
All right, let's get into it.
Only one of them, really. There's a balloon man. There's two balloon men.
All right, now we're doing it.
I have beef with one performer and one store. And the store doesn't even really have a name that I can tell because they just kind of took over this spot and they never took down the old sign or anything. It's just like some old bank.
Huh.
It's actually right next to where the Nightmare Gallery is now located.
Maybe someone moved into the storefront. They're like, "This is my house. Please leave."
Yeah. Well, anyway, whoever owns it is not particularly friendly, and I won't get all into it, but I did not enjoy them, and as far as I'm concerned, there's plenty other stores like that one in the area, so I would recommend going to any of the other ones.
Any of the other ones than the one that does not have a name and you cannot describe.
Yeah.
Take that.
Well, yeah, next to Count Orlok's. Go to Count Orlok's,
okay,
though.
yeah.
That's still
Go
a
to
cool
him.
place. But, yeah. And so this balloon man. So the way it works with the street performers is you have to get a license and you have to fill out an application and all this stuff, and they give you all the rules and regulations. And technically, one of the rules is that you're not supposed to be within 25 feet of another performer.
Sure.
But if you don't have competing acts, then most people don't really care. For example, say I'm doing my act, which is a talking act. I try to get people to come over. It's a performance. I'm not going to want to stand near someone playing the trumpet.
Sure.
So that would be a competing act, or someone else doing a speaking act or something like that. But if it was just the guy that dresses as Michael Myers, I don't care if he stands on the other side of the road from me. That's fine.
He doesn't say much.
Right. So if it's a balloon man, I wouldn't give a shit if he wanted to set up near me. That's fine by me.
Yeah.
Apparently, this particular balloon man does not feel the same way, but I don't want people to get confused. There's two balloon men.
Have you ever seen the two balloon men have a balloon off?
No.
Now that is something I could get into.
There is one gentleman who kind of sits on this high top chair and does his balloons from that. He looks rather old. I don't know how long he's been out there, but he's been out there the past few years anyway, if not before that.
Okay.
And no problem with him. He seems lovely. He's right next to Steve the Blue Vampire, who's a very famous character in Salem.
Okay.
And, Steve's cool, so I assume that this balloon guy's cool, or, there'd be an issue. But there's this other balloon guy who's not always there, so maybe he won't be there this year. But, yeah, he was like, I need you to move along, sir. I was here, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, he hadn't even started yet. He hadn't even, gotten his stuff out. And I was like, I will go, but just so you know, that is not how we do things here.
The inflection at the end is perfect.
Yeah. Well, because I know it's stupid, but anyway, so I moved on.
Yeah.
But but no, most of them are cool. Steve the Blue Vampire is a cool guy.
Is he dressed blue, or is this like a Blue Man Group situation?
He actually he looks like he's the vampire from Salem's Lot, is what he looks like.
Okay.
Blue.
Okay.
Vampire.
All right.
He looks like a blue Nosferatu,
All right.
like the character Nosferatu.
Okay.
and it's actually gloves and a mask, but it's a really cool mask.
Yeah.
Like, it moves with his mouth and everything, and he puts in contact lenses. He does a good job.
Nifty.
And he's got a cool, like, tip thing that looks like a coffin. And, yeah, he's a good dude. And who else is out there? Tall Bob, the Bubble Man.
There's no way these things could ever live up to the names, because the names are spectacular.
No, he's tall, and he makes giant bubbles.
They're giant. Okay.
Yeah, they're giant. And he was cool. He was actually the first street performer that I met the first year I was there. He was very nice. He was like, hey, do you need anything? You need water or anything? I'm going to CVS. And I was like, okay. But he wasn't there last year. But I saw him yesterday, and I saw him today. And I said, hey, Tall Bob, where were you last year? And he's like, oh, well, it was the first year I was off parole, so I went and did some things and had some adventures. Because, once you get off parole, you got to do those kinds of things.
It's true.
So I was like, yeah, all right, man. You got to live it up, He's like, yeah, but now I'm back, so I'll be
Stay
here.
clean, Tall Bob.
So I didn't get too far into it, and I wouldn't divulge anyway.
No, you wouldn't.
It's fine.
You wouldn't.
But he's a nice guy. I don't,
Yeah.
Maybe don't be alone with him. I don't know, but seems fine. And let's see, who else? Oh, there's the Addams family. They're always very friendly, nice people.
All of them?
Well, there's a Gomez, a Morticia, Wednesday, and then sometimes they have a Lurch with them.
Okay.
But Gomez came up to me today, and I didn't recognize him because he had a beard. He wasn't in costume yet.
Yeah.
He was just walking the streets, but he came over and said hello, and I was, oh, okay, so they'll be out next weekend, I assume.
Yeah.
But
well, you could fester for them sometime, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe someday. I have to shave off the goatee, which is hard,
Yeah.
But so I'm trying a new goatee this year, as you pointed out when you walked in.
I did.
I was trying to look a little more sinister, and I guess I pulled it off because that is something you said.
I would say dastardly is a word I would use.
Yeah. The problem is, I thought I could keep it mellow for regular life, and just because I have this long mustache now, and the point was that I was going to wax it out to the side so that it would look more like, Vlad the Impaler kind of thing. And then on the weekdays, I could just pull it down, and it would just look like a regular goatee, which might not be the height of style these days, but more normal than like a whimsical hipster mustache or something.
I suppose.
But that's not what's happening.
No, it is not. I can vouch.
What's happening is that the long mustache, when it's not brushed out, is curling in. So it's kind of like a Fu Manchu, like a really small Fu Manchu, kind of, I guess is how you describe it.
Yeah. I feel like I can't think of any specifically right now, but I believe that there are some evil folks in mixed media that have that specific look going as well. So, and they're probably bald, which is probably why I'm thinking of it. I don't know who.
I describe it as like a heavy metal guy who's 20 years past his prime, but still trying to live the rock and roll lifestyle.
Yeah, he can still do it, but no one cares.
Yeah.
All right.
Which I'm not saying is the look I was going for. But look, hey, it is what it is.
Washed up bass player from Sweden. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What else can we say? We got to say more things.
I hate saying more things.
This is the quality of the show. But as a street performer, I've had run-ins with, tourists. Most of them, nothing to write home about. I think I already talked about the guy in the ski mask a couple episodes ago. I'll mention it briefly. There was a guy in a ski mask last year who was kind of a dick.
Well, yeah, I can get that. Was it very, very cold? Because that's the only...
No.
That's the only good reason.
He was trying to walk around scaring people.
That's
and
so
he threatened
basic.
me. And but I think also that he was probably a little left of center. But who knows? But anyway, I did mention him to the police, and the police were like, oh, we've heard about him before. If you see him again, let us know and whatever. But didn't turn out to be any issue for me that year. But
well, do you stay until the very last weekend? And I'm assuming you don't go on actual Halloween.
I don't.
Because usually it's a weekday anyway, but...
Yeah, I would have liked to go on actual Halloween.
I
but
hear it's just a nightmare. I've never been either, but...
From what I'm told, because I've never been on Halloween, but from what I'm told, the Saturday before Halloween is actually the craziest day.
Oh, okay.
And I've been there for that. And when I do my street performing, I do have a whole performance that I do. I put people through a trial and all this stuff. It takes about 10 minutes. I get a crowd going and, all that stuff. But I also just do pictures. And by the end of the month, I'm usually only doing pictures because there's so many people and people aren't really stopping to see shows and stuff like that. But they'll
Sure.
stop and be like, oh, can I take a picture? Can I get a picture? And yeah, whatever, sure.
Yeah.
And I'm not one of the people, I don't even have a tip jar.
Mm-hmm.
I will mention sometimes I'll be like, oh, I do take donations, but I don't demand them. And I'm not begging for money or anything like that. But I still do all right. To me, the money's nice, but it's kind of like funny money,
If you don't, if you don't feel any sort of compulsion to actually do this thing, like if you don't enjoy it, you probably shouldn't be there. So
yeah. To me, I was telling someone the other day, like when I stop, like say I take a break for lunch or if I decide to leave early that day or whatever the case may be, as I'm walking away, if I see a lot more people coming, I always feel bad. But it's not because like, oh, I could make more money off this group of people. I feel bad that they don't get to see me and that I won't be part of their experience of Salem. Not that like, oh, these poor people, they don't get to meet the Witchfinder. But because like I feel like I want to be part of it. Like I want to be part of their experience, It's fun for me, and I hope that people have a good time and they'll remember it and they'll see the picture they took with me and be like, "Oh, that guy was really funny. Remember him?
Well, maybe we can use that to kind of bring this around. I'm not sure how much you've talked specifically about your finding on the pod. I know you talked about that guy in Salem, but that does make me curious. I'm sure you've told me this years and years ago, but I'm probably immediately forgot it. But what exactly attracted you to this specifically? Because it sounds like it's pretty inexorably linked to Salem itself. There must have been something about your experiences in Salem to think, hey, not only can I do this, I'm gonna do this and like make clothing and build this entire act. And so there must have been a reason it was Salem, right?
Yeah, well, you of all people know, Brian, that I have had performer's licenses in other places.
I do indeed.
Cambridge, to be specific. And I've used it loosely here and there, a handful of times.
Sure.
I did it for like 4 years straight. I went and got the license.
Yeah.
And seriously, maybe a handful of times actually went out and did something with it.
Yeah, Cambridge is tough, though, because it's a regular city. I don't see a lot of street performers in Cambridge, so it's
well, they're out there, but yeah, it's not the same. I remember where I was, but I don't remember why the idea came to me. I know that I was driving home from Norwood.
okay.
Perhaps I was listening to an audiobook about the witch trials or something like that. That seems like something that would cause it, but for some reason I got it in my head that, wait, I could go to Salem and be the Witchfinder, and that could be like an act that I do as a street performer.
So you had heard of the specific concept of the Witchfinder somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, this might surprise you, but I'm into spooky stuff.
No, I know that. I'm just saying that sets you apart from, what do you call it, everybody.
Yeah, well, that's there's not a lot. There are some witches. There are some street performers that dress as witches.
Sure.
And when I say performers, to be honest, and this, I'm not
Costumed characters.
I'm not really attacking people, but they're not really performing. They sit there and you're allowed to go up and sit with them, and if you take a picture, they'll ask you for money.
Yeah, it's like
That
Hollywood
is-
Boulevard.
Yeah. But there are some who are better than others, as far as a performance aspect goes. But even someone like Steve the Blue Vampire that I talked about,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't perform exactly. Like, he might jump out and scare you a little bit, or like he'll pose gently for a picture and then suddenly turn and be scary as you're taking the picture. So like there's, maybe a little bit of a performance there, but I do an actual show.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no Witchfinder in Salem, but the Witchfinder General is a historic person
Sure.
who created that title for himself, and really made his own place and just decided he was the Witchfinder General on his own authority. I at least am licensed by the city, so that means that technically I'm more official than the real Witchfinder General.
Wait, when was this?
It was in the 1600s, but it was in England, and it was
Oh, okay.
I forget exactly the years now, but it was the earlier 1600s, not the latter.
Man, what a toolbox.
Yeah. Oh, he did his work though. He killed like 300 people.
Ah, great. People were cool.
Yeah.
If you've learned anything from this podcast, people are neat and make good decisions. No, and that was part of it. That I know you're into spooky things. You have a sort of fascination, but Salem to me almost seems a little too light for your obsessions, but maybe not.
Well, they run the gamut. I do like darker things and the occult and demonology and all that kind of thing. And you can find all of that in Salem. But like you're saying, it's more like greeting card Halloween for the most part. And I like that too. I grew up being a big fan of Halloween. It was my favorite holiday. My mom was really into Halloween. She loved horror movies, especially the ones about like little creatures. Leprechaun, Puppet Master, Critters, Child's Play. In fact, with my money from my first day of witch finding yesterday for the season, I always like to spend my money from the first day and just get like some stupid little treat. So I got this little demon doll.
Oh, nice.
This is technically from Puppet Master, but I don't care so much about Puppet Master.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was a pretty sweet looking little demon figure.
Yeah, he's kind of cute.
So now I pray to this.
Oh, that's nice. How's it going?
Yeah.
50% return rate on your prayers?
Yeah, so far. But it's only been a day,
Oh, that's fair. No, I've actually seen that character on the VHS cover of Puppet Master, but I was not allowed to watch those movies when I was that age, so I have not seen those, unfortunately.
Oh, we used to. I know I've mentioned this before, but my mom we used to rent the videos from Shaw's back when you could do that. And she'd be like, let's get a scary movie.
Wow.
On a Saturday afternoon.
All right. Oh, okay.
So,
afternoon's better.
Yeah, we didn't watch them at night. We watched them in the afternoon.
Yeah.
But.
Okay. Well, I would just, I'll take the opportunity to agree with you on that, because as I was telling you when we were in Salem, like that, for whatever reason that I never was completely able to explain to myself, that is precisely my lane as well. Like I don't believe in a lot of things, but there's definitely a certain attraction to just these things that are darker and spookier, and I don't even know if scarier is a great word for it, because it doesn't scare me, but like I'm a sucker for like Scandinavian metal with just this patently ridiculous imagery. There's something about the darkness that if you allow yourself to suspend all of your beliefs that you think you have, and it's just really fun. Like even just going through the gift shops, I was like, ha, spells. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same. But Brian, before we wrap up here, and I'm going to have to edit this so this episode has some kind of focus.
Nah. Who needs it?
We'll get there. But I do want to mention something nice happened.
Oh.
And it's very rare, but
that is rare.
Nice happened.
Hey, everybody, it is possible.
Yesterday, on the street, I'm standing up there on my box, trying to get people to come over, as I do. And came up with a new line this year. So I say, come accuse your friends and loved ones of witchcraft. Yes, I may sentence them to death, but at least you'll have fun pictures for your Instagram. #Witchfinder. The kids love it.
Let's get that trend in, folks.
The kids love it. But anyway, so I'm saying these kind of goofy things as people are walking by, and I'm offering to take your hag off your hands and all that stuff. And across the way, I notice this young lady, like, looking at me. And she's talking to the gentleman that she's with. And she looks really happy and excited. And I'm like, what? Like, what did I say that was that funny? Like, I didn't say anything that funny. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But I was like, well, if you're looking at me like that, just come over here and we'll take a picture or whatever, And she comes over. She's like, do you have a podcast?
Hey, it finally happened.
I said, yes, I do, as a matter of fact. And she's like, it's spooky AS. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, I love your podcast. I've been listening forever. I've been listening since the Headless Horseman episode.
Oh, wow.
And she was
that's
really
neat.
excited. And for a minute, she couldn't remember my name. She's like, I don't remember your name. I'm really nervous. You're Eric Dwinells. And I was like, yes, I am.
That's cool, man.
So her name was Kanan.
Great name.
And she just hit me up on Instagram and showed me the picture. So I'm going to post that on the website. All right. Well, listen, this has been our episode about Salem, kind of the highs and the lows.
Go to Salem. It's fun. You'll have fun.
Yeah, I would, again, as always, talked about it. We've talked about Salem in several episodes now.
Yeah.
But the main thing is, if you want to come, I recommend coming in early October, less busy, and you'll be able to do more while you're there. But on the other hand, if you like the whole carnival kind of atmosphere, and there is literally a carnival at
I was
going
going
to
say, that sounds like it would
I
fit
forget
in
when it
nicely.
is, but there's a literal carnival on one weekend. But yeah, so yeah, it's a good time. Come visit. You'll feel like you're in a Halloween special. Maybe that's what it is. It just kind of feels like you're walking through a Halloween special.
Just like, yeah, stuff that you liked when you were a kid. It's like way back when you're talking about Sleepy Hollow. It's like, I don't know that people even know what Sleepy Hollow is. I don't even know if it was Disney, but whoever made that cartoon version of it was very formative. Otherwise, I don't think that legend makes it into our generation or the generation before that.
It possibly does because it's considered like classic American literature.
I guess
So you might have had to read it in high school. But you're right.
I didn't.
Yeah, the Disney cartoon is.
And then they made a really bad Johnny Depp movie out of it, so I don't know.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
take that, Sleepy Hollow tour guide.
But it's a nice town. You could,
We
you
like
can
to
still visit there too.
Yeah, we like to start beef on this podcast.
Yeah. There you go.
People
Well, I've started
hundreds
a
of
whole
miles
bunch.
away.
The
Yeah.
Balloon Man.
Yep.
That store.
Yep.
That one store that looks just like all the others.
Hey, you're gonna walk in next week and they're gonna be ready.
Yeah.
Boards with nails in them and everything.
All right. One more time, please check out the website spookyas.com or spookyasshit.com. You can find us on Instagram at spookyasshit, and you can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/spookyas. Join the secret group so you can talk about all of our deep, dark secrets. And what else was I going to say? I felt like there was one more thing I needed to mention. Oh, yeah. Please share the show, subscribe, rate, and review. Brian's mocking my hand gestures that I'm doing right now.
Always.
That really means a lot to me. There's been a whole bunch. Oh, that's another thing. I got a nice review, and it said something along the lines of, and the headline of the review was, it's like being read spooky stories by your Shakespearean actor dad.
Oh, I saw that.
And it's a very nice review, and I really appreciate it. Could do without the dad comparison, though. I mean, I guess I'm getting near that age, but
You could be a dad.
I could. But I'm not.
All right.
So I appreciate it, but yeah, maybe next time let's not qualify.
All right, now
it.
you're just sounding a little hostile towards dads.
Well, I think
Don't
maybe
like
what
it.
they meant is not so much that I seem like a dad, or that I like, because then I'm like, what does that mean? Like I have dad humor, or, you know. But,
I could argue that we have very dad humor on this show.
but maybe more what they meant is that I am very comforting and protective and all the other things that, you know, a good father figure is. So maybe that's more what they meant. Brian's
Absolutely.
incredulous to
Well,
this, but-
good episode. Good.
All right. Well, but anyway, please keep those good reviews coming in. I really appreciate them. And Brian, thanks for being here again.
My pleasure.
Kanan, if you're listening, it was great to meet you. Hope to run into you again sometime on the streets of Salem. And for the rest of you, come join us in Salem. And until next time, don't be afraid. Future Eric chiming in again. I can't believe it. There's more things that I totally didn't remember to talk about, like all the ghost tours. There's so many ghost tours that you can take. Some are just about ghosts in general. Some are about specific Salem ghosts and witch trial ghosts. There's also the food truck festival, which happens right around this time of year. There's the haunted happenings. There's the zombie walk, zombie parade. There's haunted houses that open around this time. There's a pet Halloween costume parade. There's the psychic fair. Elvira is coming to do a screening of her movie, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. There's a haunted magic show coming. There are farmers markets and wine tasting. There's a zombie apocalypse dance.